Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am Jocelyn Turner. So happy to be with everyone tonight. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about tonight's topic. It's something that I have struggled with actually prior to getting my mechanical knees. So, for those of you who knew me before I got my mechanical knees, you have seen the transformation in how I get around now that I am officially a bionic woman and able to really focus on my fitness. You may notice that someone's missing tonight, and that is, of course, Dr. Rogers Kane. But our behind the scenes guy, as displayed on the screen, is coming from behind the screen and will join me as co host tonight. And of course, I'm referring to our technology guru, Tyrone Jackson. Tyrone, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing awesome, Justin. Thanks for asking.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Tyrone, I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite topics, other than food, of course. That probably is my first, and then this will be my second. And then maybe probably the show we had last week when we talked about getting financially fit is my third favorite topic. But tonight we have some wonderful guests. I'm eager to learn from them. Two of them I've known for several years, and one is going to be my new friend, and I will start with him, and I'll ask each of you to just briefly share a little bit about yourself and why you were called upon to join us on tonight's show as we talk about focusing on your health. Let's get fit. And I'm going to add in 2023, because if we start now, maybe we'll make it a way of life and not just something that'll last a few months. Keith, go ahead. Welcome. How are you this evening?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Ms. Jocelyn. So, to answer your question, one, I'm a Jacksonville native who currently holds the health coordinator health position at Baptist North Healthy Living Center, as well as the wellness coach. Um, Me joining this podcast this evening comes by way of a colleague, Kendall McCrae, who reached out to me this weekend, during some football. And I'm like, Kendall's texting me this early. So, yeah, I accepted the invitation to sit on this panel, and I really appreciate it. Look forward to learning as well as possibly lending some of my expertise as we look to change some habits, and increasing or improving some habits that we already have when we look at leading a healthy life.
That's
Awesome.
interesting, Keith, because I actually, when I began my fitness journey this last go round, rather, after as I was getting my mechanical knees, um, Diana Rosito is the one who I work with at Baptist North. I know she's on the other side of town. So good. It's nice to meet you and see that you are now the person at the center. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Also joining us is Melinda Henry. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I always tell her, I say it publicly, by the way, but I get ashamed to say to people that Melinda and I are the same age. Because, hunty, if you know Melinda Henry, she is the finest person of a particular age that I know. So, Melinda, welcome this evening. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. And you're gonna
So
go ahead.
thank you so very much. You know, I love, love, love. I don't really care about talking about it. I prefer doing it. But fitness and health and wealth are my favorite. It's my life, And you're right, I've been doing it consistently for a couple of years now. But nice to meet you, Keith. We are both at the YMCA. I am the Healthy Living Director. I am the Group X Coordinator, da 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 da, all that stuff that goes with that. Again, that doesn't mean anything to me as much as helping people achieve their health and wellness goals. My favorite thing to do.
And one of the things that I enjoy, Melinda, and we'll talk about it more as we go on with our discussion tonight, is seeing you and all the great things you do with the seniors there at that location. So welcome and thank you. And last but certainly not least, Tyree Williams. Tyree and I go way, okay, I won't say how, with too many ways, Tyree, but we go back to our days with the Florida Department of Health. Tyree, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, Jocelyn. How are you?
I'm doing just peachy. And poor Tyree, I used to always corner him and say, okay, Tyree, I'm ready to get started. But, it was before I got the bionic knee. So he remembers my struggle around the health department. And when at the end, when it was time to make that decision to get those knees replaced, I was walking with a cane, and that was not the way I wanted my future. And so I got those knees, and it is the best decision that I could have ever made. So welcome, and we look forward to the discussion. So I want to start out with one question, and I'd like for each of you to answer it. What's the one thing that people say to you at the beginning of the new year or at the end of the previous year when it comes to working on their fitness? And Tyree, I want you to answer it from a different perspective, because you shared with me that you are relaunching your personal fitness journey. But I'm going to give Melinda and Keith an opportunity. Like, what do you hear from people when they say, and I know they're expecting you to just totally transform them in a matter of months, but what do they say to you as they start to embark on their decision to get fit? Go ahead, Keith.
Yes. So the one thing that I hear most frequently would be eating habits, or what foods should I be eating to lose weight or to improve my weight? And then they go to the extrinsic person, and specifically the midsection. How do I lose the midsection? So I hear that very often. And I would think that would be the major question coming from a lot of individuals.
So they want you to give them the six-pack that they had when they were 6, huh?
Yes.
Knowing full well that if you haven't exercised in 30 years, like, duh, that probably will not happen. Melinda, what about you? What's the thing that you hear the most from people when the new year starts or when the old year is going out?
So one of the things they do when the new year gets started, they get so excited and they want to come every day and get their exercise on. And I tell them all the time that you have to pace yourself. Rome wasn't built in a year, so take your time and enjoy the process. They want to hurry up and get it done.
Yeah, I know, if it's January, for example, and people are like, I want to go to the islands, the Caribbean in April. And it's like, well, then you should have started in December of April of the previous year. And I'd like to get, and Tyree, what's your answer to that? How do what makes you get started? Or I know you still get calls, because I'm guilty. I've called you from time to time. When I got the diabetes diagnosis, for example, Tyree is one of the first people I called, and he gave me some great advice, and it worked.
So that's a good question, and I think that just like Melinda and Keith said, like the number one question is like, how do I lose weight? So I think, and I still get that question often, and I think I meant by restarting my fitness journey. I didn't fall all the way off,
right?
It was like 6 months of last year where I was just struggling. I was probably working out maybe like once or none a week. So I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with, and this is my second question, is how to be consistent. So that's another question that I've gotten a lot, I think, coming into the new year, because I'm really big on planning now. So that's what I talk about a lot. So in talking about, planning out what I would be doing for this year with friends and family, that's another question that I got a lot, how to stay consistent. So
The thing that I've tried to share with people, and my background, by the way, is I'm a health educator. The thing I've shared with people as people are making plans for the holidays, for example, people talk a lot about the menu. Oh, we're going to have this and that, and I'm going to bake this kind of cake or this kind of pie. And I never hear anybody talk about as a family what their fitness routine will be or activity will be during the holidays. For example, do you and your family take a walk before dinner or after dinner, or do you have any, in interactive activities, not just at the table, hand to mouth, but what are some things that you all do as a family? So I'm not going to ask you a question on that, just a comment that I wanted to say to people, or that I used to say to people back in the day when I was a practicing health educator. Just a reminder to people. Now, let's
Ms.
talk.
Johnson, let me say one thing, and I think it's really important, and I don't want it to go understating. Ms. Melinda said that, that to enjoy the journey. Oftentimes, that right there is a very big catalyst. When you jump in, all in, and you're just trying to get something done and you're not enjoying it, then it's going to go back to what Tyree said, and how do I get consistent? Well, if you create a routine that's a part of your life and that you enjoy, that you get joy out of doing, then it's going to be easier, and the consistency, it's going to be able to be there as well. And I say that coming from an athletic background. The two things that I very seldom hear is, if we train our children to observe good eating habits, healthy attitudes and habits when they're young, then they have a greater chance of continuing those as they get older.
So let's talk about that. Even, to build upon that, you talked about consistency, Tyree, but to all of you, how do you tell someone or help someone get started? Keith, when I came to the Y, for example, after I retired, and that's what we do, we wait until we get old and decrepit to then come and ask you all to perform miracles. But what if I have not been doing anything? How do I get started?
Yes. So one of my tools is a discrepancy identifier worksheet to, one, engage the individual on where they are, where they would like to be. So we're looking at their motivation, tying that motivation of basically losing 20 pounds. What's your reasoning? Okay, I want to improve my health. Then what does better health look like for you? What would it help you accomplish to do? So as Tyrone mentioned, if you're creating these habits and they're enjoyable, then you're more likely to be consistent and stay motivated, even on the rainy days, the cold days, the hot days. You're going to do that. You're going to create those habits. So that's one of my tools. It's tedious. Many people don't like it. They may not return. And it's like, well, why am I using this if people are only asking me for a meal plan or an exercise routine? It's more than just that. So I'm building on that foundation to, one, keep you long term, 6 months to a year. It really, we want to go past that. So that's my take and my tools there.
What about you, Melinda?
So I say, and it's one of the things that I love too, is join a group. We are a social entity, and the fitness industry sells equipment that become expensive coat hangers because we think we can do it on our own. When in fact, the the numbers for staying is staying in a group. Our classes, in fact, we had a class today. I know there were over 30 seniors, and they love coming together. You have the accountability, you have the socialization, and you're more apt to stay with it longer. So for me, it would be the group, get started with the group, and then when you need more assistance, then you hire a personal trainer.
And that's how I started actually, when I went to the coach and wellness coach, and then I came in and I started doing it. And this was in between knee replacements. So I came in and I was doing the chair exercises because I didn't have the confidence. I think that's the other thing. If you've not exercised in a long time, you don't have the confidence to move your body to the next level or think that you can do certain exercises. And then of course, using the trainers at the site who can work with you. Tyree, you know, and I hate to go there, but I'm just going to also expose the other part of your credentials, and that is that you are a registered dietitian, right? And
Yes.
so I know at the work that you did when we were at the health department was not only about talking to people about how, you know, making sure they eat right and exercise, but it was about, and you did that because it was about managing those chronic health conditions. So throughout your journey, did you come across a lot of people who said, you know, I've been diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes or high cholesterol, and I need to get those things under control, but I don't want to get them under control with just medications?
Definitely, definitely. And it's a lot of stuff going through my head right now with that question. But you know, I think about when we kind of started off talking about, and also piggybacking off what Keith was saying about, you know, understanding your why and understanding that it's a journey and understanding that it has to be important for you. And I think knowing that one thing, fitness, your body is going to be with you for the rest of your life. And if you manage it well, and sometimes even if you do manage it well, you still encounter chronic diseases. But even in getting or acquiring a chronic disease, you can still manage it properly or manage it better with a proper diet and exercise. So I really like what Keith said about, you know, contemplating why you're doing it. Because if it's something that's really important to you, like really high up on your priority list, like your body has to do so much to do with your work, your life in general. So if you really look at it from that standpoint, you will find a way to take care and manage your body. But if you didn't really look at it from the standpoint of, oh, exercise is just for me to lose weight, as opposed for me to actually live and be able to think better, be able to, you know, all these different benefits that you get from exercise, then you may be more prone to give up when it gets hard. But if it's a lifestyle thing, like, which is unfortunate that we do get chronic diseases when we get older, or if we eat a certain diet, but it really makes it real to us and it really becomes something that's really important to us. And that's when a lot of us really, you know, take it more seriously. But I think it's all mindset and understanding and really creating that belief in your head that fitness is something that is important to me as a lifestyle and as, you know, something that is going to be with me for my entire life, not just for like one particular goal to lose a certain amount of weight. So I don't even know if I really answered your question, but
you did. But you brought up something else though, Tyree, because, you know, just to build on what Keith said as well, people don't realize, last week we talked about financial fitness, and people want to make sure that they are paying their bills on time so that their credit scores will be good. But they don't know that the more unhealthy you are, the more your insurance could potentially cost, the more it costs to insure you, right? And so if they start seeing there is a, you know, a negative aspect of not only just the, you know, being susceptible to chronic health conditions, but also your employer may not want to insure you, obviously, you know, or either the cost to insure you may go up. If an organization has a group of employees who are all in good health, then the insurance costs may not be as great as if they had a bunch of people who are whose health is not so good. Keith, you were shaking your head and smiling. Did I say something that resonated in your mind, or were you like, you're right?
Yes, yes. When you mentioned with Tyree and being a registered dietitian, nutritionist, is that bringing in nutrition. I like to resonate also with my athletic background, as well as being in the from a business standpoint. You are your own entity, and let's say you have 1,800 calories. That's your budget for the day. What are you spending that budget on? Are you consuming junk or quality nutrients throughout the day? And that's going to help you, one, think better. And with you saying, Ms. Jocelyn, is improving your health for the long term. So that money that you want to spend on a trip, you can actually get that from a reduced, the reduced cost from paying on insurance. So
And medications. I
right,
used to tell
right.
people that you pay now or you pay later, right?
Yes,
You can watch what you eat and exercise now, or eventually you're going to be paying it in medications. If you're just joining us, we're talking about focusing on your health, and that is getting fit. If you have a question of our guests, you can write it in the chat, or either you can dial in 888-669-1280. Again, 888-669-1280. So Melinda, don't think you're off the hook now. Let's talk about seniors. How do you motivate seniors to keep coming to your programs?
So it almost can be relatively easy. In fact, we just lost one of our long-term members. Services are on Saturday. So even though after a certain age we're closer to the grave, we want to go with dignity. We don't want to be bent over and broke down. So that's the motivation right there. The quality of life is important for us as we get older. Um, so again, it's almost a no-brainer. It's kind of easy, actually.
Well,
And you
and I
talked
don't.
about the group activities. I'm sorry, Tyrone, you talked about the group aspect of it. If people are coming and seeing other people who, are like-minded or look like them, then that also, and the socialization of it. That's what I often enjoyed back when I retired, before I started going back to work. But when I retired and I used to go to the Wyatt Baptist North, I saw the same people every time I went. And that was my motivation. And if I didn't come, they would say to me, I need to get your phone number. They said, I need to get your phone number because I was wondering how to get in touch with you. I hadn't seen you, right? And that's motivation. I was like, oh no, I was on vacation. I didn't check out or anything, wasn't sick or anything. I was just on vacation. But to let people know that, to get used to seeing you there, I like that. Tyrone, did you have a question or
Yeah,
comment?
I was thinking as I was listening to our guests, and my thought was, do you find it um, more or less challenging to work with seniors or youth? Because it appears to me, as you're saying, the social aspect is a power driven for the seniors. But what about that middle age, that 35 to 45 to 50? What drives that group, that generation into looking at their health in a more positive way? Because at those ages, I mean, you really think life is forever and you got all the time. Whereas there's a part of it that I think works as an advantage for seniors is it gives them something to do. They're most often retired. They have more time. They have more doctor's appointments. They have been forced to look at the status of their health and had to make the hard choices. But when you're looking at a 35-year-old, 40-year-old, you know, it doesn't seem like it's the same. So my question is, which one you find more difficult to steer into a better fitness plan?
So if I could answer that by saying that when you're right, when you're 30s and 40s, you think you're indispensable. But when you look ahead at our aging grandparents, again, if you don't want to be bent down and broke over, what do? Start working on it now.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
And also, the people always think that it's expensive to work out. How do you help people to get over that hurdle of it's too expensive or I don't have the time to work out? What are your tips for them on that?
Well, as- and that's kind of twofold with Tyrone's initial question of the challenges of working with the different demographics. The younger demographics they may not see the cost benefit for making that investment into a gym, or you know a personal trainer for a short term, or investing in utilizing a fitness app such as MyFitnessPal to track your eating habits, only for a short time. So getting past that is a challenge, is very tedious for both demographics from my point of view. And that's where it makes it's more rewarding for me when I break through to an individual with just a short-term goal, something small, like, hey, adding in more fruit, or finding somewhere that you can actually walk, a safe environment to go walking in your home, maybe around a chair, or up and down your hallway if you have that space. So just the little things.
That's
But
good.
you said it earlier, Jocelyn. You said pay me now or pay later. So
Yeah.
when you talk about the expense of it, a gym membership, depending on where you go. So and just to plug a little bit for um, other fitness center, $10 a month. You pay that when you go to Burger King
Yeah.
for a meal. When it's $10 a month for a membership, as opposed to $10 a meal. When you look at the cost of being healthy and the cost of medication. Now I know the pharmacists and whatever is making it very inexpensive now because they want you on the medication, but you pay for what you want, and you get what you pay for.
But the perceived threat is for
Yes.
the younger demographic. They don't really see it as of right now. So getting them to identify, like, okay, one thing with the Healthy Living Center, which I think is great, we have the ability to check their cholesterol, their diabetes, and looking at using a health perception survey to kind of identify where they are. That perceived threat of developing that chronic disease kind of help us, help them gauge where these habits can lead them. So that's one of the tools that can be utilized there as well. But
Yeah, the other piece of it and what you said is, and Tyree, I'll let you chime in, is I've already stressed to people to know your family health history,
right,
right? If you know that diabetes runs in your family, for example, then if you are the older person or the middle-aged person in your family, talk about it to the younger people in your life to let them know. For example, in my family, my dad was on dialysis, right? His grandmother had diabetes. Nobody ever said that, but I remember when she got her toe amputated, another toe, the foot, the leg, the other toe, so it just kept going on and on. But back in the day, I know access to care probably was an issue for her. But the older during this time, most of us have access to health insurance, and we need to know what our health insurance covers. For example, for those who want to go to a fitness center, oftentimes silver sneakers is an option for them to take advantage of. But, know your family history and know that just because my dad was on dialysis doesn't mean that it's inevitable that I'm going to be on dialysis. Because thanks to Tyree and some others who've helped me for 3.5 years, I've managed since my diabetes diagnosis. I've never taken any medication, right? I have managed my diabetes with and not let it get out of control. So people have to understand the drugstores in our neighborhood is not necessarily the place that you need to help maintain your health, right?
Mhm.
What you need may be right in front of you in terms of your feet and the sidewalk in your neighborhood. You know,
Yes.
get a pair of shoes and just get out and walk. That wasn't an option for me. I needed the socialization of going to a gym, right? And I also needed the familiarity of folks like Tyree and some other folks to call and say, what do I need to do? I cried when I got my diabetes diagnosis. So if you look at it as something that could potentially shorten your life, these chronic health conditions, then and know that you do not have to get on all of those medications, that you could watch what you eat, lose weight if you need to, and of course, get a personal trainer like one of these folks on our podcast tonight. And again, if you're just joining in, we're talking about focusing on your health. It's the first of the year. We always talk about wanting to do those, we put those resolutions out there. But you can tell from what Keith, Melinda, and Tyree have been saying, this is about focusing on your health and making it a way of life. If you have a question of our guests, dial in now, 888-669-1280. Now, if you're shy and don't want to talk or put yourself out there, you can always just type in a question. Tyrone, don't let me do all the talking. Do you have a question?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, it is very easy in a subject like this to just listen to the guest and get the quality information that they're giving us. I think it's important for all of our listeners to kind of a couple of things that I've heard. One, that this journey for greater fitness is not a sprint. You know, you got to set goals. You got to create a path that is exciting and something that has a motivational value for you. You know, but the thing as I was listening to, as I said, I did have a question. My question was simply this here. It appears that as a society, we're missing the boat in terms of informing our youth and the population about this. So are there programs or things that we can do better about getting this information to the public?
Well, when we look at social media, that's a big platform, but I also think that it is kind of dysfunctional in many cases where you some of the information is not credible. So it can be a negative, it can provide a negative impact on some individuals who have not built up the willpower to be consistent or adding in healthy habits. So as far as the youth, getting that information out, Ms. Jocelyn, she mentioned the family. It starts with, the family gatherings. It doesn't have to be a walk or, something like that, but we have video games where they, the virtual games with the boxing, which is similar. I might be dating myself, but you had the Wii. So you had the Michael Jackson, the dancing, the TikTok could be one of those, the aspects of getting some physical activity in. So social media, using that platform or, those types of software or different technologies to help get the youth engaged.
So did
Simple
you all
things
have a
like
lot of,
dancing as well. I mean, that's one of the things
yeah,
that families can do
Yeah.
together is dancing. You know, if you really think about it, if you let 2 or 3, 4 songs go by, you find yourself winded real quickly.
Oh yeah.
Tyrone, that's what I did actually when the pandemic happened and I couldn't go to the gym. I actually would go in my garage, have my speaker Bluetooth to my phone, and I played one line dance after another. And I literally was on my driveway just dancing by myself. And my neighbors started looking. I was like, come on, join me, right? And so that is a way. And so that leads to my next question. How many people have talked to you about those pandemic pounds and said, I got to get back on track. And what do I do? How do I get started? And if so, if you've had that conversation with people, what did you do or say to them to get started and get rid of those pandemic pounds?
You said it, Jocelyn. Dancing, so easy, so intergenerational, so much fun, creating those endorphins. And once you get started, it's those endorphins that allow you and help you be consistent. Do you know you can burn upwards to 300 calories per hour of live dancing? Why not? Who not? Everybody does that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, I
absolutely.
didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. And it's
That's
easy.
pretty.
No equipment. It's music. We listen to it anyway. It's part of our culture. And just, as Nike could say, just do it.
So do you have any of you, have you had a physician? I know Dr. Kane is a primary care physician. He's not on tonight. Have any of you had clients who've said, my doctor told me made me come here, or told me I need to come because I have high blood pressure and I'm not managing it well. Have you had that? And how do you help people get started in their journey to manage those chronic conditions?
I have not had that from a personal trainer standpoint, but I've had it from a nutrition standpoint. So, I would say really, and I think now is a little bit different than I would have done it previously, because now I really think about the mindset a lot more, because I think mindset is super important when it comes to developing habits. So really helping people understand like some of the unhealthy, unconscious beliefs that they have. So maybe those beliefs that say, oh, it's the pandemic, I can't exercise. But like you said, you can exercise. There's just helping people overcome barriers by, coming up with alternative solutions. So I think really starting there as to helping them understand like why it's difficult for them to exercise, and then some solutions to those barriers, working with them to develop those solutions. Not me saying, hey, you need to go dance, or hey, you need to go do CrossFit in your garage. No, maybe dance, and then, oh, maybe I can dance. That's something that people like to do. So letting us as individuals come up with solutions and figure those things out of what we enjoy, especially when it comes to exercise. Because if you don't enjoy it, more than likely you're not going to stick to it. So
There was a gentleman at the Y one day as you were talking, Tyree, I was reminded of him when you talk about, really helping people to make the connection. I remember him saying to me, he was sitting there and seemingly in pain. And of course, I just said, are you okay? He said, I wish I knew how important this was when I was a young man, because now I'm dealing with nerve damage from diabetes, right? Poor circulation, and helping people to understand that you don't want to wait until you, as Melinda said, you're broke down and she didn't say it, but I'm going to say it, 1 foot in the grave, right? You want to make sure that you start early, make it a way of life. People get their children involved in sports, some of them, when they're in school, but when they graduate from school, if they don't go to college and play collegiate athletics, then fitness seems to drop off rather than continuing to make it a way of life. And again, it's not inevitable that you will have the diseases that your family members had just because you are a part of that family. But I always tell people there are some things that we cannot control, and that is our race, our gender. Well, some people might do something with that, but nor we cannot control our family history, what was in our family. But the things that we can control, what we eat, our level of physical activity, the way we manage our stress, those are the things that we should focus on, and not focus on, keeping the retail pharmacies in our neighborhoods.
And
Nothing against retail pharmacies.
one of the things that we need to do as parents, and we need to make activity purposeful. So there was a time, I'm probably the old, I'm going to assume Dr. Kane's position, and I'm the older senior person on the panel today. Okay, and during the time I grew up, on the street I was on, there were 50 kids. So the activity in life was in outside playing. Well, society and suburban cores have changed greatly, and that is not as it's more shift now. So parents need to create purposeful activities, visiting parks, going to the beach, and creating activities that drive these kind of fun concepts and in the younger generation's mind, so that as they grow older, it's easier for them to participate. I can assure you, if you have a fond memory of going to the beach or going to the park, and you get to a situation where you want to do workout, then that becomes an option for you.
Can I back up for just a second?
Sure.
So, Jocelyn, congratulations, first of all. I did not know you had that diagnosis, but you beat it. And so I want to back up just a little bit when you said that we don't have control over our DNA. You diffute that by saying your grandmother, your father, you difuted that. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a journey though. And it didn't, yeah, it's lifelong.
And you have to want to do it. I just heard a report. I'm at a Blue Zone meeting, and one of the founders of Blue Zone said that our DNA, our lifestyle, and our chronic disease is attributed to 20% of our DNA, 80% of our lifestyle.
Mhm.
So we can take control if we want, just like we want anything else in our lives.
Mhm.
We budget for our vacations. We decide what we want to drive, what we want to wear. We can decide how we want to take control of our health. So we have to stop sugarcoating this and softening the point. We can do whatever it is we want to do, period, point blank. And you just prove that.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. McLeod. We can help to improve our future family history. People just have to know that it's not inevitable, but it's hard getting started. You know, if again, I remember when I got ready to get on my journey, and that's what, you know, we always, like, we're not at the end of the show, but you know, before we get to the end, you know, I really would like for you to talk about, and Keith kind of started it, not kind of, he started it tonight by saying, you know, if I am a person who has been diagnosed with diabetes and high blood pressure, and I have been relying on medications to manage those, and you know, and yeah, maybe I watch what I eat, but I really know that I need to get off the couch, right?
Mm.
So tell our audience, you know, what do I need to do to get started? What would you tell that person to get started? You know, set that goal, Keith, you talked about. And I remember, by the way, and I used to get mad at Diana. I'm like, lady, I'm trying to lose weight. Why are you trying to tell me to eat more vegetables? But I got it after a while, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's a letdown. That's a letdown for me a lot of times. I'm very passionate about my career, about health and wellness, mainly because, you know, I have an athletic background. Football was my lifeline. You know, growing up, I just wanted to be like Jerry Rice. So I poured everything into sports, and it gave me that foundation to, one, God first, family second, work, school, that comes third. And in there, I'm just that vehicle, I'm that vessel to, one, make my life, I have to be complete, you know, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So individuals that are looking to improve their health and moving forward in their life, you have to pick up the pieces and identify where you would like to start. And as Jocelyn, you mentioned, you know, stress management, sleep, physical activity, and eating. Those are the four, you know, determinants of health. You can't control those uncontrollable risk factors, but you can control how much you eat, when you're eating, and how much activity you actually perform throughout the week. So just again, setting those short-term goals based on any of those four determinants of health, and knowing your shortcomings, knowing your weaknesses, so you know your barriers, and that helps you identify your readiness for change. And that's ultimately, like looking yourself in the mirror and saying to yourself, I want to make this change, and this is where I'm starting. So following up with you mentioning a referral from a physician, following up, that's based on the 7 stages of change. You've contemplated some sort of change, within the last 6 months. If your physician made that referral, you come in to visit me or Miss Melinda over you're at the Johnson Y, Miss Melinda?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So, following up with a health coach or other health professional, so you're making those preparations to go into the action step. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, because you're just adding extra stress. And exercising, eating habits, all of that can be stressful, especially if you have not created those habits for a certain period of time. For myself, Tyree, you mentioned you haven't exercised for a while. You haven't fallen completely off, but I have. Exercising has been completely out of the window for me the last 3 months, and I enjoy exercising. I can run 3 miles and then go and do calisthenics or resistance training, but I've embarked on a journey in education, working on my doctorate degree. So I don't need all the excess calories. I don't need all this great deal eating a whole pizza. I don't need that right now. So I'm focusing on eating alone, because I'm not going to burn those calories in a sedentary job. So little things like that, just focusing on what's in front of you, is the first step.
Somebody said to me, and I don't know if I never heard the truth behind it. And when I used to do water aerobics, I used to go to a local pool, Good Shepherd, actually, as a part of my, again, this is all pre-bionic knees, but people often say it, and if any of you know if it's true, that for those of us who are wanting to lose weight, that 75% of losing weight is what you eat, and 25% is exercising. Is that right?
Weight loss starts in the kitchen. What you put in your mouth shows up on your body.
Moment on your lips, forever on your hips. It's not forever, right? It's not forever. It's temporary. Yeah, and so, and I like people to say that. I remember when, if people and I know I heard, and I'm not going to say the name. I'm not going to endorse anybody, but I heard somebody say, and I really pay attention to it now. Before you put something in your mouth, and Tyree, you and I have had this conversation in the past, reading those labels, right? And if you think, like, if I eat this thing, like right now I have some sugar-free gum sitting next to me, right? If I eat it, but if it were a piece of candy, if it were a candy bar, and if I think of it like, man, this is 300 calories, how I'm gonna have to exercise an hour, another dance an hour, in order to burn off that one thing, right? But if I have that urge and I just want something sweet, one of my friends told me when she started losing weight that she would buy a bag of individual pieces of candy. And if she wanted something sweet, she would just get one of those miniature pieces and she was done. Well, everybody's not that disciplined, right? And what I would do, I would get the candy bar and break off the little square. It took discipline. But guess what? When I saw that I was going to eat a little bit more, and I know what my favorite candy bar is. I'm not telling anybody else because I made the mistake of telling my colleagues that, and now I have a bag of that particular candy. But I would eat a half of it because I'm reading the carbs on it, right? And I would literally, I don't care how much is left, even if I just eat a third of it, I'm throwing it away, because I know that when I get ready to check my blood sugar, I don't want my blood sugar. I can't have my blood sugar going up high because I'm not on any medication to bring it down. Right. So if people understand that there is a consequence to everything that you put in your mouth, or there is a consequence of what you don't do. And you got to listen to your doctor. Dr. Kane is not here tonight. You know, Dr. McLeod made a comment a few moments ago. You know, you got to have a good primary care physician to help you. You got to have a good primary care physician that you're going to for those routine checkups to check your blood, your blood work, so that you'll know where you are. And that would be my advice to people. If you've not gone to the doctor in a while and you don't know where you are, first of all, go to your primary care doctor. They'll get some blood work done on you. Look at your numbers, go over those with you. Go and see a registered dietitian. They'll talk to you. In the past, we've had Linda Brown on us on. You know, she has a business. You can go to Linda and she'll, you know, take her that blood work. She'll tell you, write out a meal plan for you and help you figure out what it is that you should eat. And if you, when you need that extra encouragement, you go to Melinda and Keith, because then they're going to say, okay, so the dietitian said you need to eat more vegetables. Let's talk about that. How are you going to do that? Right. Because I swear that's what Diana used to do. And I'm like, if you talk to me one more time about eating them vegetables or drinking that water, right? But, you know, I understood the benefit and the reason that, because what I told her, and that's the other piece, what are the things that you know you need to do that you're currently not doing? For me, is drinking more water and eating more vegetables. It was 3 years ago and it still is, right? But what I started doing is making small steps. And I think that's what each of our guests have said tonight. I started adding spinach in my eggs at breakfast, and just little steps of adding vegetable places that I never, you couldn't have told me 5 years ago that I'd be scrambling spinach in my eggs, right? And so really, you know, a blending spinach with my, you know, in my smoothie, for example. And so people just have to know this is not impossible. And you know, getting control of our fitness is not impossible. Our behind the scenes guy has sent me a little note and said, hush, Jocelyn, we're nearing the end of the show. So it is at this point that we like to give our guests an opportunity. You know, there's so much that we can talk about when it comes to focusing on our health and really getting started. But we do like to end the show with giving our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts tonight. And I'm gonna switch up the order, and I'm gonna start with Melinda because she's dying to get back to the meeting. You notice the brick or the stone wall behind her because she's at a community center where the Blue Zone meeting is going on. And Melinda, in your final thoughts, just tell our audience real quickly what Blue Zones is, if you will. You're muted.
Sorry. Blue Zones is simply how to teach individuals and communities to be centurions. And they've noted 9 proponents of becoming centurions. And one of them is just move, just move. Incorporate more veggies, more plant-based, more beans. Those things that where your body simply takes in the nutrients, digests it, eliminates it quickly, frees you up for flexibility, more energy to live that easily sustainable life. Get into a community of like-mindedness, the components of living a long, healthy, quality life. And once you get started, stay consistent. And you yourself has said it, Jocelyn, you'll see the difference. And that's motivating enough to keep it moving. One more thing, and I'm going to let you go. I like to tell my people, and particularly those who have chronic disease, how do you tell your family members that you love them, but you won't do the lifestyle changes so that you will not be so that they will not be dependent upon you to take care of them? You can't tell me that you love me, but you won't take care of yourself, and that I got to take care of you when you get sick and broke down. That's not love. That's selfishness.
Say it, Melinda. Preach, girl. You said that, and I mean, we have to share that tough love. Thank you, and
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
there are blue zones around the world where people live to be 100. Everybody in those
Quality life.
communities live to be 100 years old, and you think like, how do we do that? And I'm so happy that that model is now in Jacksonville, and
Yes.
there are people who are working to figure out what do we need to do in our city in order to help people live to be 100 or more. Thank you, Melinda. You don't have to hang up, but I'm going to move on to Keith. Keith, what are your final thoughts as we end tonight's discussion?
Yeah, when we look at the ecological approach to things, as Melinda said, as when you look at your family, it starts with you. If you're the matriarch or patriarch of that family, mother, father, you know, creating those healthy boundaries for yourself shows your family members that you do love them, where they're less stressed and worrying about you having poor health. So, you know, just taking the opportunity to improve your health for yourself, as well as extending it to your family members and your community. You mentioned, Ms. Jocelyn, exercising out in the driveway. You invited your neighbor to come over and join you. So we have to, one, start with ourselves, move to the family, out into the community, and creating those healthier boundaries outside of that, your home and that environment, because there's a lot of uh, food deserts. They won't change like you. And when we look at the pharmacies, they're there, but when we want to have healthier options for foods, they're not gonna come to certain demographics or certain areas, because we're not the money is not being spent there. So we want to, again, take account of yourself, look at the cost benefit of improving your health and spending your nutrient values or your nutrient budget wisely, and then spend your money in a more effective way to improving your health and maintaining health.
And I forgot to say it to Melinda, so I know she's off camera, but I want to say it to you before we get to Tyree as well. If you can write in the chat box your how people can get in touch with you if they'd like to make you their wellness coach. If you could give your contact information, Keith and Melinda, put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that we post it on our website if people want to get in touch with you all beyond this evening. Tyree, last but not least, what are your final thoughts for tonight's topic?
My final thought. So I'll say, get rid of unhealthy, unconscious beliefs, get rid of excuses, and get rid of stories. So what I mean by that is basically just get your mind right. So by unconscious, unhealthy beliefs is really the excuses and stories that we tell ourselves, which is a good thing. So identify, use those excuses and stories that we all tell ourselves, and use that to identify the solution to that problem. Because whatever excuse or story you're telling yourself, oh, I've never worked out before, like, you can learn, you can get started. So figure out the solution to that barrier. Those excuses point to the solution. So they point to what's blocking you from getting started. So be able to really identify the negative things that you're telling yourself and look for those solutions. And then the last thing I would say is, start your journey and own your health, own your fitness. So don't just feel like you have to wait to go to the gym for somebody to tell you what to do. That professionals are for a reason. Professionals are there to help you, but you also have to own your own health. You don't have to wait. You can go and do research, because whether it's said and done, any health professional will tell you, I can't do it for you, and I won't be with you for the rest of your life. You have to learn. You have to empower yourself to be able to either take what is being taught to you or do your own research and implement these things. So own your own health, start your journey. And I say it's a journey because nobody knows everything about health and fitness. Even the professionals, it's science. Science is something that's ever evolving. New things are always being learned. So, take control of it and learn as much as you can and keep growing and keep learning and keep at it. So that's how I'll close it out, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyree. And behind the scenes guy who's in front of the camera, what are your final thoughts for tonight's show?
Well, final thoughts is that first of all, I want to thank the guests for coming on. It was a very good discussion, a lot of good information, and the things that I've heard that I think are really important to emphasize once again is that you got to start first of all, and this is not a sprint; it's a journey. Tyree just said it. Okay, and the second one is motivation. You got to find a way to motivate yourself. One of the things that I find very interesting is we can actually reach out to friends and family and tell them that, hey, I'm in the process of losing weight and doing this here. I need your help. I don't need you to exercise with me, but I need you to call me and make sure I'm exercising. I swear, I think you'll get more participation from them on that scene than any other. And guess what? Then when they need to do it, they'll call you in the same way. So it is a motivation, and it's a journey that we all need to be on.
Thank you, Tyrone. And again, as Tyrone said, thank you to our guests for joining us tonight. My final thoughts for tonight's show are, oftentimes we get together with our friends to go out and go to dinner. How about asking your friends to meet you at the beach or at a park to go for a walk as a group instead of going to get something to eat? And maybe you go and get a light lunch afterwards, for example. There's a group, I think it's Rain's Class of 77. Shout out to Rain's Class of 77. They've been meeting at the bridge on, one morning. I don't remember what morning of the week it is. And as a group, they get out and just one person saying, hey, meet me at the bridge and let's walk. Let's start being more intentional. That's what we talked about tonight, being more intentional about what we do. Also utilize the apps. I think one of you mentioned the MyFitnessPal as one option for that people can use to track what they eat as well as their fitness. And when you take your children to the park for those little league games, don't just sit there and cheer them on while they're practicing. Go for a walk. Take a walk with the other parents around the park. And also know your family health history. When you're doing your family tree, write down next to each individual what health conditions each of them have, because unfortunately in some families, it may be a rare disease that if you do not mention it to your current folks in your bloodline, later on down the line, you may be gone and they may not have known what you have. So start having those real conversations with one another and just get started. Don't worry about anybody judging you. When we talk about focusing on our health and getting fit, just get started. We should have put on our to-do list, our wish list rather for Christmas to get a pair of sneakers. Well, if you didn't put it on your wish list for Christmas and your birthday is coming up, oh, and by the way, mine is in 2 days. Give that person something for their birthday as a fitness to help them with their fitness goal. Either it is a membership or shoes or whatever the case may be. To our listeners, thank you as always for watching and listening in. We hope that you got some tips and tidbits to help you get started as you are ready to focus on your fitness level. And of course, stay tuned next week as we embark on another topic and really tell people what's really going on here at Pause for the Truth. On behalf of our co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane, who's missing in action tonight, as well as Tyrone Jackson, our technology guy, thank you and have a good evening. And thank you again to our guests. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Happy early birthday, Jocelyn.
Good evening.
Thank you.